Hi, everybody. We're talking hospitality with the recruiter guys. Today we have an associate of mine for decades and a friend for just as long, David Tripoli. How are you, David? So nice to have you aboard.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here with the recruiter guys. Thanks for having me.
Carrie, how are you today?
I'm good, Gary. How are you? And David, how are you?
I'm
Good.
terrific. Terrific. Glad to be here.
Carrie's the other half of the recruiter guys, and we're just talking hospitality. So, David, you came to you have a very storied hospitality career, very exciting. We had the pleasure and opportunity to work together for a while with Entertainment One and Leisure Management, some other companies. But kind of tell us how you got from Phoenix to Houston, and then how your career progressed from there.
Well, I was very fortunate to get to, like a lot of people, start in the hospitality industry at a young age. I'm the youngest of four boys. I had an older brother that was in the hospitality industry, and I kind of followed those footsteps. He was a manager of a restaurant, and myself and my high school buddies became his dishwashers and busboys, and so from that point, I was just hooked. I worked my way to different positions and to working in kitchens, to being able to be trained to a banquet waiter, to a waiter, to bartend, and worked my way while I was going to school through that. That same brother, Chris, was moved to Houston with a company that a gentleman named Chandler owned, and they were doing a thing called Luther's Barbecue at the time, and a couple other restaurants, Great Mine Company and in the park. And so I followed him out to Houston, and I worked at Luther's Barbecue during the day and tended bar at the park, and it had an opportunity to go into a leadership position with that group. What's terrific about that time is, as always, the restaurant industry is a tight-knit group, but I worked with a gentleman named the smoke master at Luther's Barbecue was Morris Melcher, who went on to do Smoky Moe's. My manager, the general manager I worked for, was Doug Brooks, who became the chief executive officer and chairman of Brinker International. And right across the street, there was a flower shop that turned into the second Chili's ever built, and that was opened and operated by the late Creed Ford. You know, God bless his soul. He went on to be a chief operating officer of Brinker. So there were some pretty impactful people in our industry at that time. I went on to go to work with TGI Fridays, and that was at the time the College of the Restaurant Industry. Tremendous learning experience. He either worked for Fridays or Steak and Ale. That's where Norman Brinker was at that time, and grew my career there until our paths got to cross in the 80s when I joined the Leisure Management / Entertainment One group that was doing nightclubs at that time. And so I've had the joy of getting to work in different facets of our industry, different categories of restaurants, but also many different markets. I lived in Phoenix, was raised there, lived in Houston, moved to Chicago, represented us, as you know, Gary, in several markets, was our franchise rep to Osaka, Japan. Gary was, one of my mentors that I got to learn a lot about business from, because he came to the group as back from the director of operations of Hard Rock Cafe, and boy, they were the biggies of the biggies in those days. I remember going to visit Gary in New York, and what a tremendous opportunity that was. And so got to work in different markets, different types of people, and different types of concepts that attracted different clientele. Although all those are different, hospitality is still hospitality. Hospitality is an emotional connection you can make with another human being. And if that other human being is a customer, and believe me, your employee is your customer also, and those relationships are really what you can take from our industry that means so much in your life. So I've been very, very fortunate.
Well, that's so funny. What a great intro to this, because I grew up going to Luther's Barbecue. My brother was born in Houston. It was my dad's favorite restaurant, and we went to Luther's absolutely all the time. And I can't believe the connection that we're having right here, because I didn't know that about you, but I loved Luther's Barbecue.
Yeah, it was the good stuff. And Morris went on obviously to have a tremendous career. So did Doug, and so many people that went through there. At that time, we all used to say this: everybody works for all the same people, just at different points in their career.
Right.
And it really was that tight knit of a group. Now with Entertainment One, it morphed into the Trulux Restaurant Group, as Gary knows. And so the first Trulux was opened in 1992. By 1994, we were out of the nightclub business. By 98, decided to relocate the base of the group to Austin, Texas. And I served as the chief operating officer of that group these past years and grew the company to 13 locations and about 90 million in sales. And now that's a different category. That's a white tablecloth, higher end, fine dining category. The restaurant didn't start that way, but over the years, we evolved there. I think that's what we all find so exciting about the hospitality industry is if you stand still, it'll pass you by. You've always got to be polishing the stone and improving. It may not move as fast as tech, but there's always developments there in terms of food and beverage offering and service touches and ambiance and customer needs and profiles. And so it's a continual process. You're always wanting to be excellent, but the truth is excellence is an arrival you may never get to. It's the pursuit that you have to enjoy.
And how many, I just was thinking about this the other day, just I know a few together, but how many restaurants in your career do you think you've opened from slab to we're open?
I'm approaching 70. Yeah, I'm approaching
Wow.
70. I was part of the opening team on several Fridays, and then when Chris and I did Fat Frank's, then the nightclubs and the openings that we did there, and then the Trulux. And so yeah, it's been quite an adventure.
I recall of all the memories, as frustrating, as scary as the deadlines draw near, opening a restaurant was the most wonderful part of my career. A lot of people would think I was out of my mind, but I just enjoyed that so much. It was just so much fun to have all these new people focused on, this certain entity that's going to open up in a matter of days. And you're just, are they trained? Do they know what they're doing? Do we have food? That was my favorite part of the industry.
Yeah, because you got to hire them. You were part of their selection process, and you got to take them on the journey, communicating the vision of what was their excitement. You feed off of. When you're in that room in orientation of could be 35 or 75 people, boy, when they get amped up about what it is you're explaining you want to do, and they make that reality happen, and they're a part of that process, it's hard not to get juice and energy from that experience.
Right. And then when that first guest walks in, it's like, we're on. It's showtime. That's what. So you spent many decades with, well, over 2 decades with Trulux.
Yeah.
Grew it from 1 to 12?
13.
13. All over the United States, from Florida to La Jolla to DC to Chicago to Texas. I think we have the most in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent upscale restaurant, great bar service, great service, best service, in my opinion, of the fine dining restaurant segment of our industry. And then when you were opening DC, you went there and for a meeting, and about March of 2020.
Yes. In March of 2020, we were in the process of opening DC. I was working with the general manager and getting the building finished, staff hired, organizing the training team to come. And we were scheduled to open on April 6th of 2020. And unfortunately, I was flying up there every Monday, flying back on Friday nights. When I got back on Friday night of March 13th, I wasn't feeling well. And then I had to go online back then to get a test. I got a COVID test on March 17th. March 18th is when the shutdown happened. So we furloughed the whole company and put a stop on all operations and progress of that project. And on the 22nd of March, I went in the hospital. I was the very first COVID patient at the hospital I went to. And I didn't get home until June 3rd, the evening of June 3rd. So I've had a battle with COVID.
Yes, yes, and you were on a ventilator. It was, but there. I mean, you have your staff and management that you had mentored and led through all the openings and everything. I remember they did a parade for you
Yes.
on Hughes Landing in the Woodlands with gosh, just cars and cars and cars of staff. That was great. That had to make you feel a little bit better.
Oh, much. They did the parade while I was on the ventilator. It was shot on video. I didn't see it till, a good while later. I was on the ventilator from the 23rd, the morning of the 23rd of March till April 25th. And I also had a trach, so I couldn't speak either once I did wake up. But to see that video, it really made, the truth is there's no medical logical reason for me to be here today. It was everybody's prayers, and you were included in that, Gary, that got me through it. Somehow the good Lord saved me. He didn't get to save everybody, but somehow he saved me and has a purpose for me. And yeah, that video meant the world to me. And now I need to go look at my next best chapter and fulfill that purpose.
So you healed, the business is open back, and you separated from Trulux, and now you're in the job market.
Yes, yeah. During COVID and as everyone had to, Trulux pivoted. They pivoted very successfully. Restructured the company, didn't renew a couple of leases, and in that restructure, decentralized the group, and has gone on that way. And so the role of a chief operating officer, like other positions, director of marketing and training, what have you, those all have been eliminated. So I was part of the casualties in that process. In the last, gosh, I'm almost coming up on 2 years of when I went in the hospital, but these last 22 to 23 months have really been about rebuilding my body and getting my health back. I've got lingering heart issues, but my pulmonary rebounded, and my physical, I had nerve damage to the left side of my body as if I had a stroke. And so I've had to rebuild my health and rebuild my body. And now I'm looking to see what my next best chapter is going to be, and in the job searching. So if I had some, knew a couple of great recruiters, Carrie, see where I can land.
No pressure. So all the things that have happened to you and are still happening to you to some extent were all from COVID?
Yes. Yeah. It's all, related.
Strange.
So I think part of it, with the nerve damage could have just been from, being in a bed for 77 days and, not moving and what have you. I also did get pneumonia when I was in recovery. So, my lungs were in bad shape to begin with, the ventilator things. So had to recover from that. And then I've developed what they call PVC, premature ventricular contractions with my heart, which is due to the infection of COVID that affects my heart functions. So I've had several procedures and different meds on that, but I'm just raring to go and ready to get back to work and looking forward to the future.
Well, from the shoulders up, you look great.
Hey, thanks.
Well, I've got to think they were learning a lot with you, right? The medical staff, since you were the first that they dealt with.
You're so right, Carrie. The blessings besides all the prayers that everybody gave me, which is countless and so appreciated. The good of me being the first patient was they really didn't know what to do with me, but tried everything. And my two doctors, main doctors, my pulmonologist, cardiologist, they would work all day with me and then study at night what was going on in New York. So that's when they decided, when you're on a ventilator, you really shouldn't have a trach, but they knew I needed one. It's when they started to prune me, flip me over on my belly, and doing different things. And so, yeah, they were the real heroes. In fact, a quick little story. You don't, there's so much you don't remember. You don't know what's real, what was a dream, and what's not. But my very first visit to the pulmonologist, cardiologist, I'm in a wheelchair at this point, not walking. My wife wheeled me in, and I said to Dr. Babu and Carnati, I have this vision that is so clear to me. I don't know if I dreamt it or not, but I remember waking up in recovery and grabbing one of your arms saying, God bless you, doctor, you saved me. Did I dream that, or is that real? And literally Dr. Babu and Carnati teared up, and they both said, no, that was real. That's what you said when we put your voice flap back in from your trach. So it was an opportunity for them too.
Wow. So most of that's behind you. You're still taking some meds, and you still have some, you were doing some PT, but, and you do look healthy. And so now it's time to get back to the industry that you have such a passion for. And to me, the industry has suffered while you've been out, because you make a difference in the hospitality industry. And I say that as a friend, but mostly as an associate, and seeing you open a restaurant and seeing you lead a group of people. But so what does I know it's different, and but what is the landscape of looking for a C-level job look like today?
Well, it's very different on several levels. First, there seems to be a much more impersonal approach from the employer in recruiting standpoint than there used to be. And I'm not so certain if that's beneficial or not. Everything is an online application. You don't know who really is pulling it off on the other end. You'll get the automatic, we received your information, but then in several cases, you don't hear anything at all. And I don't know if that's just that, there's so many applicants, although people say that they need people so badly, but, or if there's just a disconnect, because I know, Gary, if we got information on somebody or spoke with somebody, we always let them know, hey, thank you for your interest. And I don't have anything for you at this time. Wish you the best of luck, or maybe even give them an idea of where they might be a fit. We always looked at an applicant as a customer. So we didn't want them to look and feel like their experience was any different, from with the representation of our restaurant. That seems to be very, very different today. And then there's different avenues that there may be a fit for. There are the independents and the chains, but there's also the private equity venture capital groups. And it appears that different people may be handling those types of organizations. There's certain recruiting companies and that are out there that will work directly with private equity and venture capital funds. There are some that won't, for whatever reason. And so there doesn't appear, at least for me, to be a lot of those C-level positions out there. I am looking in Austin. I enjoy Austin. I prefer to stay here, but I won't be opposed to to relocating for the right opportunity. I also think the landscape has changed tremendously. And Gallup just had an article come out a few days ago about the top 6 things that are important to the employee today. And I think as an employer, it's interesting. You have to examine your organization and ask yourself, what is the resistance of people choosing hospitality, and how can I address those issues? The hospitality industry is so great about it. We're one of the very few industries I know that you can start as an employee, like most all of us did, and earn your way into a leadership position, even ownership positions, without formal education. And but there has to be that pathway created. And today's employee and people looking for work, you have to be able to answer what's in it for them. What's in it for me should be part of what you're answering as you go to recruit and hire. and providing a pathway for your people. And I'm finding, at least in my case, those are questions that aren't really being answered by the employer that
Right.
that really needs to be addressed in order to get the the peak performers that you're going to want to bring into your organization.
The game breakers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that, and I've noticed that I think Carrie, you noticed it too, the hiring process seems longer than it was pre-COVID, although everybody needs managers. I mean,
Yes.
Carrie just got slammed last week with about over 20 recruiting assignments. And we had a gentleman on last week, one of the shows that was talking about, he changed his whole way. If he finds somebody and he likes them, or he sees, even if it's just the potential that he sees in the resume, he immediately moves forward.
Yeah.
He gets the interview set up, and it's a no-go at any point in time during the process, but at least you're starting the process.
Yes. And I think as a employer in the hiring process, not only is that important, but again, we talk about hospitality, which is the emotional connection. You have to be willing to connect with that person on a human level to be able to start building the relationship process rather than the paperwork onboarding process. The relationship comes later. I think you really need that relationship process at the beginning to get the candidate attached to your company, you, and your purpose.
Yeah, I've always subscribed to of course, it can take longer, but it's usually extended because of people's schedules. But, you do the formal phone screen or the formal interview where you sit across the desk, and then you say, the next one's, hey, let's have lunch. So it's a more casual setting, and you start building that relationship, or you don't start building that relationship. And then eventually you have dinner or breakfast or lunch with the candidate and their spouse. And because if you're in a restaurant industry, so is your spouse.
Right. But we're also seeing a lot of what we're doing right here. We're seeing a lot of this Zoom aspect coming in as an initial, being able to meet someone and get a feel for it, which I think helps the process.
Yeah, I think it does. That's a great first start to then get something moving. I thought there was an ad that I saw for a local restaurant here, and I was just inspired by it because it was through LinkedIn and it was also posted online, but they were looking for an assistant restaurant manager. And at the bottom, it said these words: please call, and then it gave the phone number, to schedule your interview appointment between 1 and 3, Monday through Thursday. And I thought, man, that's so old school. I wonder if they got any traction. I wonder if people actually did say, you mean I got to get in my car and drive over there to interview with you? I want to sit in my PJs, but I think that was so great. This article I referred to, I think these 6 points are just so important. So I'd like to share them quickly, but it's the 6 points for hiring in 2022 through a Gallup poll. And one is, and I think all of us kind of know this anyway, but a significant increase of income or benefits. The benefits is becoming equally as important as the pay. So benefits such as, in today's world, a 401k may have been something new 10, 15 years ago. It's pretty much a requirement now. And what you can put together for your people. The next one was, greater work-life balance, and personal well-being. Having your people have a well-being plan is important. And, I think that when Gary and I were going through our initial years of leadership, I know at Fridays it was this way, and you work 6 days a week, and it was that beat 'em up mentality. And, those days are long gone. And I think our industry doesn't have to be that way. You can, there's even some companies that offer a 4-day work week. You might work 4 12-hour shifts, but they're offering that if you choose for that to happen. And we have to look at what's important to to those people, especially in leadership. You kind of want people that show stability, that might be married and have children and have a mortgage and are working for that. Well, then don't take all their time away from that family, because that just means that family is going to exit them at some point, and you're going to have larger problems on your hand. The third one was give them the ability to do what they do best, and that's something we worked really hard at Trulux. So Gary complimented us on our service, and we won customer service awards several times. That was big. But one of the things that I was most proud of is winning a culture award. But our culture was based upon finding out people's strengths and letting them perform their strengths. Why make them do something that takes the joy out of their work? So, when we were in school, that may have been how we had to learn some of those difficult things. But in a career, you don't want to sit with your bosses and say, hey, you're good at A and B, not so good at C and D. So this quarter, all C and D until you master it. You just took the joy out of that person's work. The fourth one was greater stability and security. I think that COVID has kind of cast a shadow on the stability of hospitality, because you're open, you're not open, what the capacity is. The pivot of that industry really did have to whack a lot of positions and a lot of jobs. And so there's a little fear there. The the fifth one, and I can see this being a concern in many industries, though, is what is your COVID vaccination policies? Do they align with, the beliefs of your people? And then the sixth was the organization is diverse and inclusive of all types of people. And this is something that, boy, our industry does need to keep up on. And certainly even the group I used to work with. I mean, my goodness, do you really need dress codes? Aren't dress codes just trying to alienate a certain customer you don't want in the building, but you're saying it in a different way so you don't seem like a racist? So you don't seem, I'm not discriminating, but don't come in if you're in a hoodie. Okay. What's really being protected there? Or even on the employee level, haven't we all worked in places where it's, oh my gosh, visible tattoos? We can't have those. Those visible tattoos will turn a customer off. Really? Look at America today. I mean, I'm 63 years old. I have a tattoo. Do I have to cover it for my job? I mean, so, we have to kind of grow up and be the accepting, loving, hospitality people that we're saying we represent in the hospitality industry, rather than falsehoods acting like, we're protecting our, 65 and up all white men country club.
Right.
So those days have to be gone in our industry.
Well, and it's interesting. I would say that orders off a little bit, because I can tell you now, for me, that work-life balance is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Money's important. There's no question it's still important, but these other things that I don't think the industry talked about for a long time have really come up when it comes to these employees and the things that they really have bothered them and they really want to do. And I'm glad it's finally getting out there. And I think it'll end up, once we address this properly, I think you'll end up having happier employees, which means they'll stay longer and work better and all of those things that are so important.
Addressing those things will really help your retention. And I think that COVID, did this to all of us. Nobody planned on being cooped up in their house, with their families and spouses and things as much as they were. But I think it redefined what's really important to you. And, what has to happen, not that we're a country so much raised on greed, but we are always raised on aspiration of what's next and what do you have. And I think COVID kind of has that, well, do I really need that anyway? What do I really need? Do I need the ranch that I may never visit, but twice a year, or the second home, or the country club memberships and the fancy sports car that, I think it got us tied to, I really want more meaningful experiences. I want meaningful relationships. I want my world to be connected and be important. I want to be around people who truly, genuinely care about me. And so I can care about them. At the end of the day, the only thing you get to take with you are the memories. That membership to the country club isn't going with you. Now, the friendships and the relationships, don't mean to be bashing country clubs, but I'm saying, it's the relationships. It's the relationships. And that's what really matters.
I agree. So David,
Yes,
you
sir.
had mentioned that, I think in conversation that you're maybe not preference, but what you're looking at also as you are looking at your next chapter is startup companies.
Yeah, maybe a startup or a growth, something may have locations that's looking to grow, something that may want to be grown through a private equity or venture capital firm. I find that to be interesting. I also have done a little bit of consulting work, advisory work, and I find that to be enjoyable and interesting. It may not be steady enough, but I think that if I look at what I enjoy most of the industry, and that is the teaching and developing and coaching of people in their careers. I'm very, very proud of the people at Trulux, and there's some great leaders there. And I think we also look at mentors differently. Mentors don't have to be people that are older than you, that have a position larger than you. I think there's a lot of people at Trulux that I worked with that were mentors to me that were assistant managers. I mean, you learn from everywhere, and
Right.
and so the opportunity to work with and develop people for their skills, and have them have an enjoyable life. Again, those are the memories you get to take with you. Gary and I both worked with a wonderful lady named Amber, and we've known her since she was 18. She's 42 now. When she got married, I walked her down the aisle, because I was that relationship to her. Gary and
I
I,
think I gave her first job in the industry, didn't I? As a hostess. When
yes,
she was 17 or 18.
yeah, and we just had lunch with her recently. So to see her happy, married with a child, those are the things you get to feel. Wow, I got to go along that ride with them. The person who started with you as an associate manager that becomes a managing partner or director of beverage, director, whatever the case might be, you got to be a part of their journey. Now they did the work. You hopefully supported them in that, and so you don't want to take away from anything. Like I certainly didn't give anybody a career or make their career, but I got to go along for the ride with them, and those are the great memories.
Well, you have made some careers. You're being modest. Well, David, we're going to look for some good recruiting companies to, to refer you to, and I do want to say it's good to have you getting back in the industry. It's good to see that your health is back and you're ready to go and do the things that you do so well. It'll be exciting to see you see where you land. I hope you keep us posted on what's going on with your search, your career, and what happens to you.
I certainly will. Thank you so much for having me. It's always great to see you, Gary. And Carrie, thank you so much for having me and getting to share this time with you guys.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.